Hello everyone, I'm Jonathan Little. I'm here today with another hand from a $3,500 buy-in World Poker Tour event I recently played, facing a 700 under the gun raise at 200, 300. They don't really use 50 chips anymore in a lot of tournaments where they start you with a bunch of chips because they're not necessary. So we're playing 200, 300, facing a 700 raise from a tight, aggressive player from early position. I'm definitely going to call and see the flop with ace-7 of spades. It flops great. We're in position. We should have no real problems here. We're going to call, see the flop, and then go from there. You may elect to 3-bet if you think the initial raiser is loose and weak, but I have no reason to think that. If anything, I have him labeled as tight and aggressive, so he's probably not loose and weak, right? So flop comes ace 5-4. Tight aggressive player bets 1,400 into the 2,600 pot. We have a backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, and top pair. We do have to worry about the player in the big blind having a good hand every once in a while, but that's kind of unlikely. So this is a situation where I'm pretty happy to call and see what develops. If I call and the big blind calls or raises, I'm generally just going to be done with it for sure. But even if I face an additional turn bet, I'm already not loving it if under the gun bets again on the turn. Because think about it, right? What is under the gun raising with and then betting the flop with into multiple opponents on the flop and potentially on the turn if he gets called, right? It has to be a pretty good hand. So if it's a pretty good hand, how does ace-7 fare? Well, it's not in particularly great shape, right? So I do call, turns a spade, which is great for me because even if I am against ace-king, ace-queen, ace-jack, whatever, we still have some outs. And now under the gun bets again. He bets 2,400 into the 5,400 pot. And this is not really a great spot in terms of my made hand being good, but it will be good every once in a while. And it's important to realize that. A lot of people take their made hands or their marginal made hands and they elect to use them as bluffs. And I think that is a pretty substantial mistake. Right here, if I raise, well, think about it. What's going to call me, right? It's going to be better aces and better made hands. So how do I fare against better aces and better made hands? Well, I'm in bad shape. And think about the hands that are folding to my raise. That's going to be a queen, which is in pretty bad shape. King, jack, king 10, etc. I mean, one nice thing about raising right now is that it makes it hard for the opponent to bluff me. Because if I raise here and he has king, jack, he's just going to fold. Whereas if I call the turn and then miss on the river, if I don't make a flush or a 2-pair on the river or trips, and the opponent bets again, I'm probably going to need to fold. So it makes it harder for my opponent to make a river bluff. But realize as well that I'm going to be sitting here with ace-queen sometimes, ace-5 sometimes, ace-4 sometimes, sets sometimes. We're going to make a flush every once in a while, right? So this is a spot where I definitely have plenty of good hand, making my calling range decently well protected. So I'm going to call. River is the 9 of diamonds, and now the opponent bets 4,000 into the 10,000 pot. And in terms of screaming strength, this seems very, very, very much like a good ace to me. Now, I'm not going to say it's necessarily ace-queen or a set, but I do think this is going to be ace-king a lot, ace-jack a lot, or ace-10 a lot. So, should I raise as a bluff? I don't think so. Especially when there are some obvious draws that miss. And right here, there are some obvious draws. 7-6, 8-7, and 8-6 suited. Those are hands that would definitely call the flop, maybe would call the turn, and would be sitting here on the river. When there are some obvious bluffs, you have to be very cautious when it comes to raising because a lot of players will just have a hand like ace-king and call it. They're not worried about you having ace-9 or ace-queen. If I did have 2-pair here, I think I probably would raise. Whenever you are facing this 40-ish% pot bet on the river, you're going to find that that's going to be a strong but non-nut hand a lot of the time. So if I did have 2-pair, I think I would raise to about 10,000 or 12,000, something like that. And then if the opponent jammed it all in, I would fold. That's something a lot of players hate doing. They hate the idea of raising for value with the intention of folding if you get re-raised. But understand that the vast majority of tight aggressive players in this spot, if they're sitting here with ace-king or ace-jack or even ace-queen, and they bet the river and get raised, they're not jamming it all in. They're just calling because they don't need to jam it all in, right? And in terms of bluffs, I mean, yeah, the opponent could have king-jack, king-10, jack-10 here and bluff the river for 4,000, but he's certainly not going to jam it all in if I raise all that often. So this is a spot where you can very confidently raise for value, thinking ace-king, ace-jack, ace-10 will call you some portion of the time, with the idea that if they do jam on you, they probably just have you beat every time with a set of some sort. So that's going to be my plan here. So do we call this small bet? I think the answer is just no. You always want to make sure your calling range is well protected. Like if I had ace-king or ace-jack in this spot, I would call because then you beat some worse hands. Like if you have ace-king, you beat ace-jack and ace-10. If you have ace-jack, you beat ace-10, right? But I think ace-7, ace-8, those are probably folds. Recognizing I also have the other aces in my range that have 2 pair. So this is a spot where, yes, it looks like I'm folding a pretty good hand in my range, but at the same time, I also recognize my range should be decently strong here. So I fold, and we move on with our lives. We don't do anything silly. We don't run an insane bluff. Yes, we had a good hand. Top pair and a flush draw is pretty great, but when you're facing an under-the-gun player who goes bet, 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 you just need to fold. So that's going to be it for today. Hope you enjoyed this video for Poker News. I can't talk. Make sure you are following them on Twitter at Poker News to stay up to date on everything happening in the poker world, and follow me on Twitter at Jonathan Little. And stay up to date on all the poker strategy. Good luck in your games. Have fun. And I'll talk to you next time.